Welcome, dear listener, to a gentle journey through the lively lanes of medieval Europe, where the flicker of firelight and the strains of a fiddler tune could transform a weary heart. Settle into a quiet moment, perhaps with a warm blanket or a steaming cup in hand, and let me carry you back to an age of muddy fields, thatched roofs, and fleeting joys. I'd be delighted to know where you're listening from and what hour it is where you are. Share it below, for it's a wonder to see how far our love for history stretches across the globe. If these tales of the past bring you solace, subscribe for more soothing stories to cradle your soul. Picture a small village, nestled among rolling hills, its air heavy with the scent of freshly turned earth and wood smoke. As twilight falls, the village green comes alive. Laughter rings out, and children dart between legs, chasing a rolling hoop, while villagers, weary from a day's toil, gather around a crackling fire. Tonight is no ordinary night. It's a festival, perhaps May Day or the harvest feast, when even the poorest soul might forget their hunger and hardship for a spell. In the Middle Ages, life was a relentless struggle, with death ever near, yet people carved out moments of mirth, moments of connection, that like stars in a stormy sky. How did they find joy in a world so harsh? Let's wander through the meadows of this bygone era and uncover the festivities that warmed the hearts of peasants' hearts. The heartbeat of the village. Peasant festivals. In medieval Europe, from roughly the 11th to 15th centuries, a peasant's life was one of unceasing labor. From dawn till dusk, they plowed fields, tended livestock, or spun wool, their hands never idle. Yet, amidst this toil, there were moments of reprieve, festivals tied to the seasons or the church's calendar, which offered a rare chance to celebrate. Christmas, Easter, and the Feast of All Saints were sacred, but they also sparked communal merriment. On these days, villagers set aside their tools, donned their finest, perhaps a simple, clean tunic, and gathered to revel in the joy of togetherness. Imagine a Yorkshire village in 1320, bathed in the golden hues of a May Day sunrise. A tall pole, wreathed in flowers and ribbons, stands proudly at the green center. Young men and women weave through a dance, their footsteps quickening to the tune of a piper's merry notes. Children squeal, kicking a leather ball, while elders sit on makeshift benches, sipping weak ale and trading tales. These festivals were the lifeblood of a village, moments when the weight of feudal duties lifted, and neighbors became kin, if only for a day. May Day was a favorite across Europe. Villagers chose a May Queen, often the fairest maiden, crowned with a garland of wildflowers. She embodied spring's renewal, a symbol of hope for a bountiful harvest. Chronicles from 13th century England describe how dancers wove ribbons around the maypole, a ritual believed to coax fertility from the earth. But not all was serene. Some festivities ended in brawls or accusations of impropriety, as the church kept a wary eye on excessive merriment. In 1282, a Norfolk priest scolded his flock for dancing too wildly, warning of divine displeasure, yet the villagers danced on, undeterred. Games and pastimes, laughter amid struggle. Peasants lacked the luxuries of the nobility, but their ingenuity birthed a wealth of games. One beloved pastime was village wrestling, where young men grappled to prove their strength, hoping to win admiration or a maiden's glance. A 12th century chronicle from Normandy recounts how such matches drew crowds, though broken bones were not uncommon, adding thrill to the spectacle. Another favorite was the chaotic game of ball, a precursor to modern football, played with a stuffed leather sphere. In towns like London, hundreds might join, chasing the ball through streets, toppling stalls, and shattering windows. In 1314, King Edward II banned such games in the city, citing the great noise and harm they caused, but villagers paid little heed, relishing the rare chance to unleash their spirits. A 14th century manuscript from Chester describes a match where two villages clashed, each claiming victory amid good-natured taunts. Children, too, found joy in simple play. They chased wooden hoops, played blindman's bluff, or crafted dolls from rags. On winter evenings, families huddled by the hearth, spinning tales of knights, dragons, or lands where bread was plentiful. These stories, passed down through generations, were more than entertainment. they preserved a village's soul, weaving hope into the fabric of hardship. Music and dance. The soul of the village. No festival was complete without music. With crude instruments, bagpipes, flutes, drums, or homemade fiddles, villagers crafted melodies that stirred the heart. In 13th century France, wandering minstrels brought magic to villages, singing ballads of love, war, or heroic deeds. Their arrival was an event, anticipated for weeks, as they might mock a stingy lord or share news of distant realms. A chronicle from Provence tells of a minstrel fined in 1290 for a song deemed too bold, yet his tunes lingered in the villagers' hearts. Dances bound communities together. The carol, a circular dance with joined hands and sung refrains, echoed across Europe. In 1374, a strange phenomenon swept Aachen, Germany, known as the dancing mania. Villagers danced uncontrollably, some collapsing from exhaustion, believing it warded off the plague. Such moments reveal how deeply music and movement wove into medieval life, offering release in times of fear. Church festivals. Joy under scrutiny. The church loomed large over medieval life, shaping even merriment. Major feasts like Christmas or Easter began with solemn masses but ended in revelry. The Feast of Fools, held around January 1st in France, saw villagers and minor clergy stage mock processions, electing a bishop of fools for absurd ceremonies. A 13th century record from Notre Dame describes clergy donning comical costumes, to the delight of onlookers, though bishops frowned upon such antics. Yet, not all fun was sanctioned. The church viewed excessive dancing or carousing as sinful. In 1215, the Fourth Lateran Council condemned indecent dances in churchyards, but villagers often ignored such edicts, slipping into woods or fields to celebrate. A tale from 14th century Bavaria speaks of a priest joining a forbidden dance, only to face a fine, but he danced anyway, unable to resist the music's call. A peasant's tale. Marjorie's moment. Let's meet Marjorie, a young peasant from a Bavarian village in 1340. Her days are filled with toil, milking cows, spinning wool, stirring watery pottage. But today is the harvest feast, and Marjorie has been chosen harvest queen. Her cheeks flush as friends weave daisies into her braid, and she leads the dance by the bonfire. For one night, she forgets the calluses on her hands and the lean winter ahead. The fiddle's tune, the warmth of the fire, and the laughter of her neighbors fill her with a joy that will sustain her through the cold months. A monastery chronicle near Regensburg notes such feasts, where villagers shared what little they had, ale, bread, perhaps a roasted pig, creating memories that outshone their poverty. Marjorie's moment, fleeting as it was, reminds us how even in darkness, people sought light. The shadow of hardship. Festivals were a respite, but they couldn't erase life's harshness. Hunger stalked many villages, and the church's watchful eye curbed excesses. A bad harvest could turn a feast into a memory of want, and plague or war could silence laughter. In 1315, the Great Famine swept Europe, yet some villages still held meager celebrations, clinging to hope. This resilience, this refusal to let joy die, speaks to the medieval spirit. Conclusion: a spark in the dark. Peasant festivities were a defiant spark in the gloom of medieval life. Maypoles, raucous games, and haunting melodies offered solace, binding communities in shared joy. Yet, behind the laughter lay the shadow of toil, hunger, and the church's stern gaze. These moments of merriment were hard-won, reminding us of humanity's enduring quest for happiness. Close your eyes and picture that village green, alive with firelight and song. Let it linger, a whisper of a time when joy was a treasure snatched from hardship. In our next journey, we'll step into the castles of the nobility, where tournaments and feasts dazzled, but carried dangers of their own. Until then, dear listener, may your dreams be as warm as a harvest fire. Nightly tournaments and noble pleasures. A castle looms against a cerulean sky, its turrets crowned with snapping banners, each emblazoned with a noble's crest. Below, a field stretches wide, dusted with the first light of dawn, where the clatter of armor and the snort of war horses herald the day's spectacle. Trumpets pierce the morning hush, and a crowd, lords in velvet, ladies in silken veils, merchants clutching purses, presses against wooden barriers, their breath catching as two knights thunder toward each other, lances gleaming. The impact rings out, a splintering crash, and one knight tumbles to the earth, to cheers and gasps. This is a tournament, the beating heart of noble entertainment in medieval Europe, where chivalry and ambition collide in a dance of glory and peril. Beyond the field, in candlelit halls, nobles play chess with ivory pieces, trade verses with troubadours, and feast on delicacies that dazzle the senses. In the Middle Ages, from the 11th to 15th centuries, the nobility's pleasures were a tapestry of splendor, woven with threads of danger, rivalry, and excess. Let us step into this world of pageantry and power to uncover how the elite found joy amid their gilded lives. The tournament, a stage of chivalry and chaos. Tournaments, born in the fields of northern France around the late 11th century, were the pinnacle of noble entertainment, evolving from brutal mock wars to choreographed displays of martial skill. In their earliest form, melees saw dozens of knights clash across open countryside, capturing rivals for ransom or seizing their horses. A 12th-century chronicler, Geoffrey of Monmouth, describes a melee in 1120 where fields ran red with blood, though such accounts may exaggerate for effect. By the 13th century, the joust, a one-on-one duel on horseback, emerged as the tournament's centerpiece, demanding precision and courage. Consider a tournament in Bruges, 1302, its fields ringed with pavilions of crimson and gold. Knights, clad in plate armor weighing up to 100 pounds, mount destriers trained for war. The joust begins. Two riders charge at 30 miles per hour, aiming 12-foot lances at a foe's shield or helm. The impact could unhorse a man or shatter bones. Jean Froissart, a 14th-century chronicler, recounts a joust in Calais where a knight's lance pierced his opponent's visor, leaving him blind, yet the crowd hailed the victor's noble strike. Such moments defined a knight's reputation, earning him land, titles, or a lady's favor. Tournaments were exorbitantly expensive. A full suit of armor, crafted by master smiths, could cost the equivalent of a modern luxury car, hundreds of pounds sterling in 14th-century terms. Horses, bred for strength, were equally costly. A 1298 inventory from England values a warhorse at 100 marks, enough to buy a village. Prizes lured knights, gold cups, jeweled swords, or even a castle in rare cases. William Marshall, a 12th-century knight, rose from obscurity to regent of England by winning over 500 tournaments, amassing ransoms and fame. Yet, the stakes were high. In 1186, Geoffrey of Brittany, son of King Henry II, died from a tournament injury, his chest crushed in a melee. The Church condemned tournaments as schools of pride and violence, with Pope Innocent II banning them in 1130 and threatening excommunication. By 1313, Pope Clement V renewed the prohibition, but nobles ignored such decrees, drawn to the spectacle's allure. Regional variations enriched tournaments. In Germany, Stexiag armor, designed for jousting, featured reinforced helms, while Italian tournaments favored lighter mail for agility. In England, King Edward III hosted the Round Table tournaments, inspired by Arthurian legend, where knights adopted roles like Lancelot or Gawain. A 1344 event in Windsor saw 200 knights compete, with feasting lasting weeks. These gatherings were not just sport but diplomacy, where alliances were forged or broken amid the clash of steel. Courtly pastimes, the mind's arena. Within castle walls, nobles sought subtler pleasures, where wit and strategy rivaled martial prowess. Chess, introduced to Europe via Islamic Spain by the 10th century, was a noble obsession. Played on checkered boards with pieces of ivory, amber, or jet, it mirrored the battlefield of politics. King Alfonso X of Castile's 1283 Libro de los Juegos details chess strategies, praising its role in sharpening the mind. A 13th-century French noble, Enguerrand de Coucy, reportedly wagered a manor on a match, only to lose to a cunning bishop. Chess was gendered. Men played for stakes, while women used it to display grace, though exceptions like Queen Isabella of Castile, a skilled player, challenged norms. Poetry and music flourished in noble courts, especially in southern France, where troubadours crafted songs of courtly love. These poet-musicians, like Bernard de Ventadorn in the 12th century, sang of unattainable ladies, their verses blending adoration with subtle politics. A troubadour's song could win a lord's patronage or spark his wrath. In 1170, Guillaume de Bergedin fled Catalonia after mocking a baron's lineage. Women, too, shaped this art. Marie de France, a 12th-century poetess, penned lays, short romantic tales, that captivated courts. Noble ladies hosted salons, where poetry contests tested intellect. Eleanor of Aquitaine, Queen of France and England, fostered such gatherings, her court a beacon of cultural refinement. Other games carried risks. Dice, popular by the 12th century, fueled gambling feuds. A 1307 record from Florence describes a nobleman, Guido Cavalcanti, losing his inheritance in a single night, leading to a duel that left him wounded. Cards, arriving in Europe by the 1370s, added new temptations. A 1380 Venetian law banned card games for their corrupting influence, but nobles played on, their halls echoing with laughter and curses. These pastimes, while elegant, were a battleground of egos, where a clever quip or a lost wager could alter fortunes. Women's role, patrons, prizes, and power. Noble women were integral to these entertainments, though their roles were circumscribed by custom. In tournaments, they watched from canopied galleries, their presence a spur to knightly valor. A lady's favor, a ribbon, glove, or scarf, was a coveted prize, symbolizing her approval. The 13th-century romance Lancelot du Lac depicts knights fighting for Guinevere's smile, though real tournaments were pragmatic, often sealing betrothals. In 1275, at a tournament in Aragon, a lady's favor to a low-born knight sparked a feud, her family deeming it a slight to their honor. Women also acted as patrons. Marie de Champagne, Eleanor's daughter, commissioned Chrétien de Troyes to write romances, shaping chivalric ideals. Her court in the 1170s was a hub for troubadours, whose songs praised her wisdom. Yet, women faced scrutiny. The church urged modesty, and bold actions drew censure. A 1292 chronicle from Castile tells of Dona Inés, ostracized for dancing with a knight at a feast, her joy deemed unseemly. Despite constraints, women's influence lent tournaments and courts a poetic grace, their favor a currency of power. Some women defied norms. In 1348, Joan of Kent, later Princess of Wales, hosted a tournament in her own right, awarding prizes to knights. Such acts, rare but documented, hint at women's agency, their roles extending beyond mere ornamentation. Feasts, a theater of excess. Feasts were the nobility's grandest entertainments, blending food, performance, and politics. Picture a banquet in a Burgundian castle, 1360. Tables gleam with silver, laden with roasted peacocks, their feathers reattached for display, and pies spilling fruits steeped in honey. Servants pour spiced hippocras, a wine laced with cinnamon, while minstrels play lutes and viols. Acrobats leap, jesters jest, and a subtlety, a sugar sculpture of a lion, elicits gasps. A 1378 feast for Charles V of France featured a mechanical ship, its sails moving as if by magic, a marvel of engineering. Feasts showcased wealth. A single banquet could cost thousands of florins, enough to feed a village for a year. The 1396 wedding feast of Richard II and Isabella of France lasted 7 days, with 10,000 guests devouring 200 oxen and 4,000 pigeons. Performers were central. A 1353 Florentine feast included a troupe of actors staging a mock battle, delighting diners. Yet, excess bred danger. Overeating led to illness. A 1327 chronicle notes a lord dying after a feast, his stomach burst by gluttony. Poison was a whispered fear. King John's 1216 death, possibly from tainted cider, fueled such tales. Feasts were political arenas. Lords brokered alliances over wine, while slights sparked vendettas. In 1308, A Parisian banquet ended in bloodshed when a knight accused another of treason, their duel leaving both wounded. Women navigated these tensions, their grace softening rivalries. A 1340 account praises Philippa of Hainaut, Queen of England, for mediating a dispute at a feast, her diplomacy averting violence. Regional splendor. Variations in noble pleasure. Noble entertainments varied across Europe, reflecting local cultures. In Italy, city-states like Florence hosted lavish palio races, where knights raced horses through streets, blending tournament and civic pride. A 1331 palio in Siena drew thousands, its winner crowned with laurels. French courts favored pas d'armes, theatrical tournaments where knights defended symbolic bridges or gates, as in the 1449 Pas de la Dame Savage, where a knight played a wild woman to challenge all comers. In the Holy Roman Empire, tournaments emphasized heraldry, with knights parading in crested helms. A 1390 event in Nuremberg saw 400 knights compete, their armor etched with family sigils. Spanish nobles blended Christian and Moorish influences, their feasts featuring alborada music with lutes and tambourines. A 1295 Castilian chronicle describes a feast where dancers performed the zarabanda, a sensual dance later banned by the church. England's tournaments, like the 1348 Order of the Garter Feasts, tied chivalry to royal power. Edward III's court staged pageants where knights swore oaths on a roasted swan, symbolizing loyalty. These variations wove a rich tapestry, each region adding its hue to noble pleasure. A Knight's Tale, Roland and Adeline. In Poitiers, 1280, Roland, a squire of 19, dreams of knighthood. His father, a minor lord, left him little but a rusted sword and a name. When a tournament is announced, Roland sees his chance. Borrowing armor patched with leather, he rides a sway-backed mare, his heart pounding. His sister, Adeline, 16, watches from a rickety stand, her hands clasped. She's embroidered a scarf for him, a scrap of blue linen, but hesitates. Her mother warns that favoring a knight courts scandal. Roland's first joust is against Sir Gautier, a seasoned knight. The crowd roars as Roland's lance grazes Gautier's shield, but he stays seated, earning a nod of respect. In the melee, Roland captures a squire's horse, a small triumph. That night, Adeline slips him the scarf, whispering, "For luck." A lady in the gallery, moved by his grit, tosses him a silver ring, a token that sparks whispers. Roland returns home bruised but unbroken, his name now known. Adeline, meanwhile, dreams of troubadour songs, her nimble fingers strumming a lute in secret. At a feast, she recites a verse, earning a lord's smile but her mother's frown. Their story, inspired by William Marshall's Rise, reflects the tournament's promise. Glory for the bold, though peril dogs every step. A Poitiers chronicle notes such squires, their dreams forged in dust and steel, their sisters navigating a world of restraint. The cost of splendor. Noble pleasures were a double-edged sword. Tournaments bankrupted knights, forcing them to pawn lands to Jewish or Italian moneylenders. A 1350 record from Flanders lists a knight selling his manor to fund a single season's justs. Feasts drained treasuries, exacerbating tensions during famines. The Great Famine of 1315 to 1317 saw lords feast while peasants starved, fueling resentment that sparked revolts like the 1381 Peasants' Revolt in England. The Church's disapproval cast a pall. Tournaments, branded vain bloodshed, drew bans, though enforcement waned by the 15th century. Feasts, with their gluttony, clashed with Christian virtues. A 1363 sermon by John Bromyard, an English preacher, likened banquets to Satan's table, yet nobles persisted, their splendor a defiance of mortality. Women, too, paid a price. Those who stepped beyond decorum risked ruin, as did a 1375 Breton lady exiled for a flirtatious poem. Conclusion: a fragile brilliance. The nobility's entertainments, tournaments, chess, poetry, feasts, were a glittering mosaic, each piece reflecting power, pride, and peril. They shaped chivalric ideals, birthed legends, and bound courts in shared splendor. Yet, their brilliance was fragile, built on fortunes lost, lives risked, and a world where excess coexisted with want. These pleasures, like a knight's charge, were fleeting, their echoes lingering in our tales of valor and romance. Picture that tournament field, dust rising under hoofbeats, banners bright against the sky. Hold it close, a vision of a time when glory was a flame that burned bright but brief. Our next journey takes us to churchyards and market squares, where religious mysteries and plays wove divine tales for eager crowds. For now, let the clink of goblets and the strum of lutes carry you into dreams, where the past whispers its secrets. Religious mysteries and theatrical plays. A market square in York, 1380, hums with life as dawn breaks over cobblestones slick with morning dew. Wooden stages, draped in crimson and blue, rise like islands amid a sea of onlookers, merchants in woolen cloaks, apprentices with flour-dusted hands, children perched on barrels. A trumpet sounds, and a figure in a gilded robe steps forward, his voice booming. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The crowd falls silent, eyes wide, as actors in horned masks and tattered robes enact the fall of man, their gestures grand against a painted backdrop of Eden. This is a mystery play, a sacred spectacle that weaves divine tales into the fabric of medieval life. From churchyards to bustling towns, these performances, alongside morality plays and farcical skits, offered entertainment, enlightenment, and a mirror to the soul. In the Middle Ages, from the 11th to 15th centuries, theater was not merely diversion but a communal rite, binding the faithful in awe and laughter. Let us wander through these stages of faith and folly to uncover how religious dramas entertained and shaped medieval hearts. The rise of religious drama, from altar to square. Religious theater emerged in the 10th century within the shadowed naves of churches, born from the liturgy itself. Monks, seeking to vivify Easter's miracle, began staging brief quem quaeritis tropes, dialogues reenacting the angel's announcement of Christ's resurrection. A 970 manuscript from the monastery of St. Gall describes such a performance, with clergy in white robes exchanging Latin verses before awestruck congregants. These embryonic dramas, rooted in sacred ritual, grew into elaborate cycles by the 13th century, moving from cloisters to public spaces. Mystery plays, so named for the mysteries of faith they depicted, retold biblical stories from creation to Judgment Day. In England, cities like York, Chester, and Wakefield hosted annual cycles, performed by trade guilds on feast days like Corpus Christi. The York Mystery Plays, documented from 1376, comprised 48 plays, each crafted by a guild. Shipwrights staged Noah's Ark, bakers The Last Supper. Performed on pageant wagons, mobile stages drawn through streets, these plays drew thousands. A 1415 York record notes 12,000 spectators, some traveling days to witness the spectacle. Actors, often guild members, wore masks or painted faces, their costumes blending splendor, velvet for Christ, with grotesquerie, leather horns for devils. These performances were communal endeavors. Guilds spent fortunes, up to £20, a laborer's yearly wage, on props, like mechanical clouds for God's descent. A 1398 Chester account details a pulley system to raise Christ in the Ascension, delighting crowds. Yet, the Church wielded control. Bishops vetted scripts, wary of heresy. In 1210, Pope Innocent III banned clergy from acting, deeming it profane, pushing plays to lay performers. Despite oversight, mystery plays blended reverence with humor. Devil's Caprid, Noah's wife bickered, making scripture vivid for illiterate audiences. Morality plays, lessons in virtue and vice. By the 14th century, morality plays emerged, shifting from biblical narratives to allegorical tales of human salvation. These dramas pitted everyman, a universal figure, against temptations like greed or pride, personified by actors in garish costumes. The Castle of Perseverance, circa 1425, one of the earliest surviving morality plays, depicts mankind's battle against vices, staged in a circular arena with scaffolds for heaven and hell. A 1430 performance in Lincoln drew crowds who wept as every man sought mercy's grace. Morality plays were didactic but theatrical. Actors used exaggerated gestures, vice might leer and cackle, mercy sweep forward in white, to captivate audiences. Props were symbolic. A 1450 Dutch play, Elkerlijke, featured a mirror to reflect sin. Performances often ended with sermons, reinforcing lessons. A 1378 sermon by John Wycliffe praises plays for teaching virtue, though he decried their vain japes when humor overshadowed piety. These plays reflected medieval anxieties. The Black Death, 1347 to 1351, which killed half of Europe, fueled fears of divine judgment, making morality plays urgent. In France, danse macabre performances, where death led kings and peasants in a grim dance, reminded viewers of mortality. A 1424 Paris record describes such a play, its skeletal figure chilling onlookers. Yet, humor softened the grimness. Vice characters mocked pompous lords, earning laughs from commoners. Farces and fools, laughter in the margins. Not all theater was solemn. Farces, short, bawdy skits, flourished alongside sacred dramas, often performed in market squares or tavern yards. These plays lampooned greedy merchants, lecherous priests, or nagging wives, their humor earthy and irreverent. The French farce de Maître Pathelin, circa 1460, features a cunning lawyer outwitted by a shepherd, its slapstick delighting crowds. A 1455 Dijon record notes a farce halted by clergy for blasphemous jests, but performers simply moved to another town. Fools and jesters, staples of these performances, wielded sharp wit. A 1380 Florentine chronicle describes a fool mimicking a bishop's sermon, to the crowd's uproar. Such antics risked punishment. In 1402, a Cologne jester was flogged for mocking a duke. Yet, fools held a unique power, their jests voicing truths others dared not speak. In England, the Feast of Fools, held around January 1st, saw laymen stage parodies of church rites, electing a bishop of fools. A 13th-century record from Notre Dame notes clergy joining these revels, though bishops later banned them, citing lewdness. Farces and fools bridged sacred and secular, their laughter a release in a world of plague and war. They also sparked debate. A 1445 council in Tours condemned profane plays for corrupting morals, but their popularity endured, a testament to the medieval craving for mirth. The role of the Church, patron and censor. The Church was both midwife and watchdog of medieval theater. It birthed religious drama, fostering plays to educate the faithful. Monasteries like Cluny scripted early tropes, and cathedrals funded mystery cycles. A 1360 Rouen record details a bishop donating 50 livres for a passion play's costumes. Yet, the Church feared theater's power. Plays drew crowds from sermons, and humor risked irreverence. In 1215, the Fourth Lateran Council banned ludicrous spectacles in churches, pushing performances outdoors. Censorship was common. In 1390, a Wakefield play was revised to remove a scene where devils mocked priests, deemed too subversive. Actors faced scrutiny. A 1427 York ordinance fined performers for heretical speech. Yet, clergy often defied bans, acting in or writing plays. Hildegard of Bingen, a 12th-century abbess, composed Ordo Virtutum, a morality play performed by her nuns, its music haunting audiences. The Church's dual role, patron and censor, shaped theater's evolution, balancing devotion with control. Women in theater, voices in the shadows. Women's roles in medieval theater were limited but significant. They rarely acted, as public performance was deemed immodest, but nuns performed in convents. A 13th-century record from Barking Abbey describes nuns staging a resurrection play, their voices echoing in cloistered halls. Lay women contributed as patrons or seamstresses, crafting costumes. In 1370, a Chester widow, Agnes of Holt, funded a guild's play, earning praise in local annals. In secular performances, women occasionally appeared in farces or as dancers. A 1405 Bruges chronicle notes a woman playing a wanton maid in a skit, her performance drawing cheers but clerical ire. Such roles risked social stigma. A 1410 Parisian actress was shunned for immodest antics. Yet, women like Hrotsvitha of Gandersheim, a 10th-century canoness, wrote plays inspired by Roman comedies, her works performed in German courts. Their contributions, though marginalized, added depth to theater's tapestry. Regional variations, a mosaic of performance. Theater varied across Europe, reflecting local traditions. In England, mystery cycles dominated, their pageant wagons a hallmark. York's 48 plays, performed over days, were a civic ritual, with guilds competing for prestige. In France, single, elaborate plays, focused on saints' lives. A 1339 Paris Jeu de Saint Nicholas blended piety with tavern scenes, its humor startling clergy. German Fastnachtspiel, carnival plays, leaned toward farce, mocking social norms. A 1470 Nuremberg record describes a play where a foolish knight tripped over his sword, to raucous laughter. Italian theater, influenced by classical traditions, favored sacre rappresentazioni, performed in piazzas. A 1450 Florence play, staged in Santa Croce, used trapdoors for angelic ascents, awing spectators. Spanish autos sacramentals, tied to Corpus Christi, blended poetry and spectacle. A 1492 Seville performance featured a dragon spewing sparks, terrifying children. These variations enriched medieval theater, each region crafting its stage for faith and fancy. A performer's tale, Thomas and Alice. In Wakefield, 1410, Thomas, a 25-year-old weaver, stands on a pageant wagon, sweat beading under his papier-mâché halo. He plays Abel in the Guild's mystery play, his voice trembling as he pleads with Cain. Months of rehearsal, funded by his Weavers' Guild, have led to this moment. The crowd, farmers, tanners, a stern priest, watches raptly, some weeping as Cain's club falls. Thomas, a poor man's son, feels a surge of pride, his role a fleeting escape from loom and debt. His sister, Alice, 19, watches from the crowd, her fingers tracing a costume she sewed for the Virgin. Barred from acting, she dreams of the stage, her heart stirred by a farce she saw last market day, where a shrewish wife outwitted her husband. After the play, Alice recites a verse to Thomas, her words drowned by cheers. A merchant overhears, offering to fund her as a patron, but their father forbids it, fearing scandal. Their story, echoing guild records, reflects theater's allure, a chance to transcend, though bound by custom. A Wakefield Chronicle notes such performers, their lives entwined with the stage's fleeting glory. The shadow of controversy. Theater was a double-edged sword. It educated but distracted, uplifted but provoked. Clergy feared plays eroded piety. A 1437 York sermon laments crowds skipping mass for vain spectacles. Secular authorities worried about unrest. Farces mocking lords sparked riots. In 1400, a Bruges play satirizing attacks led to arrests. The Black Death heightened tensions. A 1350 Siena play, blamed for angering God, was banned mid-performance. Censorship stifled creativity. In 1470, a Chester guild cut a scene where Herod danced, deemed too joyful. Actors faced peril. A 1420 Rouen performer was jailed for ad-libbing a jest about the king. Yet, theater persisted, its power to unite outweighing its risks. The 1381 Peasants' Revolt, fueled partly by social satires, showed play's influence, their words igniting hearts. Conclusion: a stage for the soul. Religious mysteries and theatrical plays were medieval Europe's soulful stage, blending faith, laughter, and human frailty. From York's pageant wagons to Florence's piazzas, they taught, entertained, and challenged, their echoes shaping modern drama. Yet, their brilliance was fragile, shadowed by censorship, plague, and social strife. These performances, like a candle in a storm, burned bright but brief, their light a testament to humanity's need for story. Hunting, banquets, and courtly pleasures. A forest in Normandy, 1370, stirs with the first light of dawn, its ancient oaks draped in mist. The baying of hounds echoes, sharp and eager, as a noble hunting party gathers at a clearing. A lord in a green velvet surcoat adjusts his bow, his breath clouding in the chill, while a falconer whispers to a hooded peregrine perched on his glove. Hooves thud softly on moss, and ladies in embroidered cloaks murmur behind gloved hands, their eyes bright with anticipation. A horn sounds, clear and piercing, and the chase begins, hounds surging, horses leaping, the forest alive with the thrill of pursuit. Beyond the woods, in candlelit halls, banquet tables gleam with silver, dancers swirl to lutes, and courtiers trade jests that conceal daggers of ambition. In the Middle Ages, from the 11th to 15th centuries, noble entertainments like hunting and banqueting were more than pastimes. They were displays of power, rituals of prestige, and delicate dances of alliance and rivalry. Let us ride through these verdant glades and gilded chambers to uncover how the elite of medieval Europe sought pleasure in a world of splendor and peril. The hunt, a noble pursuit. Hunting was the quintessential noble pastime, a blend of sport, status, and primal thrill. Reserved for the elite by law, commoners faced flogging or death for poaching in royal forests. It was both recreation and rehearsal for war. The chasse par force, or hunt with hounds, was the grandest form, targeting hart, stag, boar, or bear. A 14th-century treatise, Livre de chasse by Gaston Phoebus, Count of Foix, details the hunt's rituals. Trackers scouted game at dawn, hounds were loosed, and nobles pursued on horseback, wielding bows or spears. A 1360 hunt in Windsor Forest, hosted by Edward III, felled 200 stags, its success trumpeted in chronicles as proof of royal might. Hunting was costly. A pack of 50 hounds, bred for scent, could cost £100 sterling, a knight's annual income. Horses, trained for agility, were prized. A 1297 inventory values a hunting steed at 50 marks. Equipment, horn-tipped bows, embossed quivers, required master craftsmen. Success brought glory. A lord presenting a stag's antlers to his lady earned courtly praise. Yet, danger loomed. Boars, with razor tusks, could gut a horse. A 1320 Burgundian chronicle records a lord gored to death. Accidents plagued hunts. King Philip IV of France broke his leg in a 1304 fall, hobbling him for life. Hunting symbolized dominion. Royal forests, like England's New Forest, were guarded by foresters who enforced laws. A 1250 statute fined poachers 20 shillings, a year's wages for a peasant. Nobles hunted to assert control over land and vassals, their retinues swelling with knights and squires. Women participated, often as spectators, though some rode alongside men. A 1340 miniature depicts Philippa of Hainaut, Queen of England, aiming a crossbow, her skill lauded in court. Hunting's allure lay in its blend of danger, display, and communion with nature, a ritual that set nobles apart. Falconry, the art of the skies. Falconry, or hawking, was hunting's refined cousin, prized for its elegance. Nobles trained hawks, falcons, or goshawks to hunt smaller game, pheasants, herons, or rabbits, using birds as extensions of their will. A 13th-century manual, De Arte Venandi cum Avibus by Emperor Frederick II, describes falconry's precision. Birds were hooded to calm them, fed choice meats, and trained to return to the glove. A peregrine falcon, valued for speed, could cost £30, more than a knight's armor. A 1285 English record lists a lord gifting a gerfalcon to a king, sealing an alliance. Falconry was intimate, requiring patience. Nobles, including women, spent hours with their birds, fostering bonds. A 1370 French illumination shows a lady, Marie de Bourgogne, releasing a hawk, her grace celebrated in verse. The sport was social, with parties riding to fields where hawks soared, their bells jingling. Success was prestigious. A 1355 Castilian hunt saw a falcon take a crane, earning its lord a gold chain. Yet, risks persisted, birds could flee, and training mishaps drew mockery. A 1300 Florentine tale jests of a lord whose hawk perched in a tree, refusing to return, to his courtiers' snickers. Falconry's exclusivity reinforced hierarchy. Commoners were barred from owning hawks, and laws protected noble privileges. A 1360 statute in Aragon fined peasants for touching a stray falcon, ensuring the sport's elite status. Its poetic allure, birds soaring free yet bound to their master, captivated courts, making falconry a symbol of noble refinement. Banquets, a feast for the senses. Banquets were the apex of noble entertainment, where food, music, and spectacle merged in displays of wealth. Imagine a hall in Flanders, 1390, its walls hung with tapestries, tables laden with roasted swans, their feathers reattached, and pastries molded into castles. Servants pour hippocras, a spiced wine, while minstrels strum viols. A subtlety, a sugar sculpture of a dragon, elicits gasps, its eyes glinting with almond paste. A 1387 feast for Charles VI of France featured a mechanical fountain spouting wine, a marvel of craftsmanship. Banquets were extravagant. A single event could cost thousands of florins, draining treasuries. The 1416 wedding of Philip the Good, Duke of Burgundy, served 20,000 dishes, including 500 peacocks, to 5,000 guests. Food was theater. A 1378 Milanese banquet unveiled a pie from which live doves flew, delighting diners. Spices, saffron, cinnamon, cloves, imported at great cost, signaled opulence. A pound of saffron in 1350 cost 12 shillings, a month's wage for a craftsman. Performers amplified the spectacle. Jugglers tossed flaming torches, and actors staged mock battles. A 1360 Venetian feast included a play of St. George slaying a dragon, its blood made of red wine. Banquets were political. Lords brokered marriages or treaties over goblets, their toasts masking intrigue. A 1343 banquet in Paris saw Edward III negotiate peace, only for talks to collapse when a knight insulted a French lord. Women played diplomatic roles. A 1380 chronicle praises Isabella of Bavaria for soothing tempers at a feast. Yet, excess bred peril. Gluttony led to illness. Henry I of England died in 1135 after eating spoiled lampreys at a banquet. Poison was feared. A 1320 Castilian lord's death, blamed on tainted wine, sparked a feud. Dancing and courtly revels. Grace in motion. Dancing was a courtly art, blending elegance with social maneuvering. Performed at banquets or festivals, dances like the pavane, slow and stately, or the lively saltarello showcased noble poise. A 14th-century manual, Orchesography by Thoinot Arbeau, details steps, urging dancers to move as if floating. A 1390 Florentine ball saw 200 couples swirl to lutes, their silks shimmering under torchlight. Dances were gendered, men led, women followed, though bold ladies could initiate. A 1365 chronicle notes a lady in Aragon starting a carol, earning admiration. Dancing was a stage for courtship and rivalry. Partners exchanged glances, their steps a coded language. Regional variations, a tapestry of pleasure. Noble entertainments varied across Europe, reflecting cultural mosaics. In England, hunting dominated, with royal forests like Sherwood hosting grand chases. A 1348 hunt by Edward III killed 300 deer, its bounty feasted upon for days. English banquets favored hearty fare, venison, mutton, over French finesse. A 1377 feast for Richard II served 10,000 guests, its scale a political statement. French courts prized sophistication. Hunting in the Loire Valley used elaborate calls, detailed in livre de chasse. Banquets featured entremets, edible sculptures, like a 1385 feast where a swan sang via hidden bellows. Italian city-states, like Venice, blended hunting with civic pageantry. A 1360 Venetian hunt on the lagoon used boats, its quarry waterfowl. Banquets in Florence showcased Renaissance flair. A 1410 Medici feast included a gilded boar, its tusks studded with pearls. In the Holy Roman Empire, hunting emphasized heraldry, with lords parading in crested cloaks. A 1395 Bavarian hunt used trained wolves, a spectacle unique to Germanic courts. Spanish banquets, influenced by Moorish traditions, featured zarzuela music and spiced dishes. A 1400 Seville feast served sherbet, a novelty from Al-Andalus. These variations wove a rich tapestry, each region crafting its pleasures to reflect identity and power. Women's roles, grace and influence. Women were central to these entertainments, their roles blending ornamentation with agency. In hunts, they rode as spectators or archers, their presence inspiring valor. A 1330 illumination shows Joan of Navarre hunting with a bow, her aim precise. At banquets, women presided, their elegance shaping the mood. A 1380 chronicle praises Margaret of Flanders for hosting a feast that quelled a feud. Dancing showcased their grace. A 1360 Castilian lady, Dona Leonor, led a pavon, her poise earning a troubadour's ode. Yet, constraints abounded. The church urged modesty, and bold actions drew censure. A 1370 Parisian lady, who joined a hunt uninvited, was shunned for unwomanly daring. Patronage offered power. Women funded minstrels or hunts, like Catherine de' Medici's 1415 sponsorship of a Florentine masque. Some defied norms outright. In 1390, Isabel of Bavaria organized a banquet, her menu, 100 dishes, including ostrich, defying convention. Women's influence, though circumscribed, lent these pleasures a subtle strength. A Noble's Tale, Guillaume and Beatrice. In Anjou, 1350, Guillaume, a 22-year-old knight, prepares for a hunt. His father, a baron, has tasked him with leading a chase to impress a visiting duke. Guillaume, clad in a scarlet cloak, checks his goshawk, its talons sharp. His cousin, Beatrice, 18, joins the party, her mare prancing. Barred from wielding a bow, she carries a falcon, her pride stung by her brother's jests. As hounds flush a stag, Guillaume's arrow flies true, earning the duke's nod. Beatrice's falcon takes a heron, its grace silencing doubters. At the banquet, Guillaume toasts the duke, his goblet hiding nerves. Beatrice, seated among ladies, slips a verse to a minstrel, her words praising the hunt. The crowd applauds, but her mother frowns, fearing impropriety. Later, they dance a carol, Guillaume's hands steady, Beatrice's steps defiant. Their story, drawn from courtly records, reflects the hunts and banquets' dual nature. Glory for the bold, peril for the unwary. An Anjou chronicle notes such youths, their lives shaped by these fleeting triumphs. The cost of extravagance. Noble pleasures bore heavy costs. Hunts ravaged forests. A 1360 complaint from Kent notes deer overhunted to near extinction. Banquets strained economies. The 1416 Burgundian feast bankrupted a duke, forcing him to tax vassals, sparking unrest. The Great Famine, 1315 to 1317, highlighted disparities. Nobles feasted while peasants starved, fueling the 1358 Jacquerie Revolt in France. The Church decried excess. A 1370 sermon by Thomas Brinton condemned banquets as gluttony's altar, urging penance. Hunting's violence troubled clerics. A 1340 papal bull criticized its savage delight. Women faced harsher judgment. Those who shone too brightly risked slander. A 1385 Breton lady, who danced with a rival lord, was exiled, her honor tarnished. These pleasures, dazzling yet divisive, mirrored a society teetering between splendor and strife. Conclusion: a feast of fragility. Hunting, banquets, and courtly pleasures were medieval nobility's radiant stage, where power, grace, and peril intertwined. From Norman forests to Florentine halls, they showcased wealth, forged bonds, and birthed legends. Yet, their brilliance was fragile, built on fortunes spent, lives risked, and a world where excess clashed with want. These moments, like a hawk's fleeting soar, burned bright but brief, their echoes in our tales of chivalry and feast. Wandering performers and street entertainment. A bustling fairground in Champagne, 1340, pulses with life as dusk paints the sky in amber and rose. Stalls line a muddy thoroughfare, their awnings sagging under trinkets, steaming pies, and caged songbirds. The air hums with the scent of spiced ale and the clamor of voices, merchants haggling, children shrieking, a bear's low growl mingling with a lute's plaintive cry. At the square's heart, a juggler tosses flaming torches, their arcs mesmerizing a crowd of peasants, pilgrims, and a cloaked noble slipping coins into a hat. A minstrel strums a ballad of lost love, his voice rising above the din, while acrobats cartwheel on a threadbare rug, their tattered silks flashing. This is the world of medieval street entertainment, a kaleidoscope of sound, color, and daring that lit up market squares and dusty roads. In the Middle Ages, from the 11th to 15th centuries, wandering performers, minstrels, jugglers, actors, and animal tamers brought joy to all, from ragged serfs to crowned kings, their art a fleeting gift in a world of toil and peril. Let us weave through these crowded fairs and shadowed alleys to uncover how these roving spirits entertained a restless age. Minstrels, the soul of song. Minstrels were the heartbeat of medieval street entertainment, their songs and stories weaving magic across Europe. Part poet, part musician, part wanderer, they roamed from village greens to castle halls, strumming lutes, harps, or viols, a precursor to the violin. Their repertoires spanned epic chansons de geste, like the Song of Roland, to bawdy tavern tunes mocking greedy lords. A 13th-century chronicle from Provence describes a minstrel, Raymond de Miraval, whose love ballad won a baron's favor, earning him a purse of silver. Yet, their craft was perilous. Another, Guillaume de Bergedin, fled Catalonia in 1175 after a satirical song enraged a noble. Minstrels performed at fairs, feasts, and markets, their voices cutting through the din. In 1320, a Paris fair saw 50 minstrels compete, their melodies drawing crowds from dawn to dusk. Training was rigorous. A 1280 Florentine guild record details apprentices learning for years, mastering instruments and verse. Costumes, bright tunics, feathered caps, marked their trade, though many lived hand-to-mouth, sleeping in barns or under stars. A 1350 London ordinance notes minstrels begging for bread, their fame as fleeting as their songs. Their influence was profound. Minstrels spread news, shaping opinion. A 1366 English ballad mocking a tax sparked unrest, its singer jailed. Women minstrels, though rare, existed. A 1290 Bruges record praises a jongless, named Margot, whose lute-playing rivaled men's. The church viewed them warily, condemning lewd songs in a 1215 Lateran council decree, yet hired minstrels for feasts, blurring sacred and secular. Their art, a bridge between classes, made minstrels both beloved and suspect, their voices a mirror of medieval hopes and fears. Jugglers and acrobats, masters of spectacle. Jugglers and acrobats dazzled with feats of skill, their performances a whirlwind of danger and delight. Jugglers tossed knives, balls, or flaming torches, their hands a blur. A 1300 Venetian chronicle describes a juggler balancing 6 daggers, his act halting a market's trade as onlookers gaped. Acrobats tumbled, walked tightropes, or stacked human pyramids, their bodies defying gravity. A 1370 Nuremberg fair saw a troupe form a tower 5 men high, collapsing to cheers and gasps. These performers, often called jongler in France or gaukler in Germany, were itinerant, traveling in troops. Training began in childhood, with bruises as common as applause. A 1340 Dijon record notes an acrobat crippled by a fall, left to beg. Props were simple, ropes, wooden clubs, but ingenuity made them spectacular. A 1385 Siena juggler used mirrors to catch sunlight, awing crowds. Costumes, patched but vivid, added flair, though many performers wore bells, earning the nickname bell ringers in English towns. Their lives were precarious. Fairs, like champagnes, were lucrative, but weather or war could cancel them. A 1310 chronicle laments a troupe stranded during a flood, their props ruined. Nobles sometimes hired jugglers for feasts, but payment was uncertain. A 1360 Castilian lord paid with a pig, not coin. The church scorned them as vagabonds. A 1320 Avignon edict banned jongler from churchyards, though crowds ignored such laws, flocking to their shows. Women performers faced harsher judgment. A 1390 Cologne acrobat, Clara, was fined for immodest feats, yet persisted, her cartwheels defying censure. Their daring, a spark in the medieval gloom, made jugglers and acrobats icons of resilience. Animal acts, taming the wild. Animal performances captivated medieval audiences, blending awe with danger. Bear baiting, where dogs fought chained bears, drew rowdy crowds. A 1330 London record describes a baiting at Southwark, its roars drowning out church bells. Trained animals offered gentler thrills. Monkeys, dressed in tiny hats, danced to pipes, while dogs leaped through hoops. A 1355 Florentine fair featured a learned pig that counted with hoof taps, its trainer pocketing gold. Exotic animals, like lions or camels, were rare but prized. A 1290 chronicle notes a leopard, gifted to Henry III, performing at a Westminster feast, its handler risking mauling. Training was brutal, bears were muzzled, monkeys chained, prompting clergy to decry cruelty to God's creatures. A 1370 sermon by John Bromyard condemned bear baiting, but crowds flocked, betting on outcomes. Performers, often Roma or itinerant families, lived on society's fringes, their animals both livelihood and liability. A 1340 Bruges bear, escaped during a show, killed a child, its trainer hanged. Yet, these acts, raw and riveting, fed a medieval hunger for the wild. Fairs and markets. The stage of the people. Fairs were the grandest venues for street entertainment, transforming towns into theaters. The Champagne fairs, held 6 times yearly, drew thousands from 1200 to 1400, their stalls a magnet for performers. A 1325 Troyes fair hosted 200 entertainers, minstrels, jugglers, puppeteers, competing for coin. Markets, smaller but frequent, offered daily stages. A 1360 York market saw a tightrope walker perform above fish stalls, his rope swaying as gulls wheeled. Fairs blended commerce and spectacle. Puppets reenacted saints' lives or farces, their wooden faces delighting children. A 1380 Augsburg record describes a marionette Judas, hanged to cheers. Mountebanks, selling dubious cures, used tricks to draw crowds. A 1350 Seville charlatan juggled while touting elixir, fleecing buyers. Games, archery contests, wrestling, added revelry, though brawls erupted. A 1335 Frankfurt fair ended in a riot when a wrestler insulted a rival town. Fairs were social equalizers. Nobles mingled with peasants, their purses funding performers. Women, barred from many roles, thrived as vendors or singers. A 1370 Champagne record praises a ballad wife, whose songs outsold rivals. Women performers, defying the margins. Women in street entertainment faced steep barriers but carved niches. As minstrels, they sang or played instruments, often in pairs to avoid harassment. A 1300 Paris record notes a sisters duo, Jean and Marie, whose harp duets charmed a duke. Acrobatics were riskier. A 1365 Bruges woman, Agnes, walked a tightrope, her act banned for indecency, but revived in secret. Animal trainers were rarer. Women with bears or monkeys drew suspicion of witchcraft. A 1380 Cologne chronicle accuses a trainer, Else, of sorcery, though she escaped punishment. Women's performances challenged norms. The church deemed public acts immodest, and guilds excluded them. A 1350 London ordinance barred women from minstrel guilds, forcing them to work solo. Yet, some thrived. A 1390 Venetian tumbler, Lucia, performed for Doge's court, her flips earning gold. Others faced ruin. A 1375 Rouen singer, beaten for a lewd song, fled to obscurity. Their courage, a quiet rebellion, added a vital thread to street entertainment's tapestry. Regional variations, a world of spectacle. Street entertainment varied across Europe, each region adding its hue. In England, fairs like St. Bartholomew's in London featured bear baiting and puppetry. A 1340 record notes a giant puppet of Goliath, toppled by a boy David. French fairs, like Lendit, leaned toward minstrelsy, with Travers singing of Charlemagne. A 1360 Paris fair saw a jongleur juggle fire, his act copied across Normandy. Italian piazzas favored acrobatics and farce. A 1385 Florence fair hosted a troupe swinging from ropes tied to Santa Maria del Fiore, their leaps a civic boast. German Spielmänner blended music with storytelling. A 1370 Nuremberg chronicle describes a skald reciting sagas, his drumbeat hypnotic. Spanish fairs, influenced by Moorish traditions, featured zegelsingers and sword dancers. A 1400 Seville fair saw a dancer balance blades, his steps echoing Andalusian rhythms. These variations, a cultural mosaic, made street entertainment a universal language, tailored to each land's soul. A performer's tale, Piers and Margot. In Bruges, 1375, Piers, a 24-year-old minstrel, strums his lute at a fair, his patched cloak swaying. Orphaned young, he learned ballads from a wandering jongleur, his voice now his fortune. His sister, Margot, 20, juggles apples nearby, her nimble hands drawing gasps. Barred from guilds, she performs under Piers's name, her dreams of singing stifled by their father's warning. A woman's voice courts sin. Today, a merchant offers Piers a castle gig, but only if Margot joins, her juggling a novelty. At the fair's climax, Piers sings of a knight's betrayal, his words hinting at a local lord's greed. The crowd roars, but a knight's glare chills him. Margot, sensing danger, tosses a torch high, distracting the throng. Later, they flee, coins jingling, but the lord's men pursue. Hiding in a hayloft, Margot hums a tune, her voice soft but defiant. Their tale, drawn from guild records, reflects performers' lives, fleeting glory, constant risk. A Bruges chronicle notes such siblings, their art a spark in the medieval night. The shadow of peril. Street entertainment was a tightrope walk. Performers lived precariously, their livelihoods tied to fickle crowds. A 1348 plague halted fairs, leaving troops to starve. A 1350 Toulouse record laments a minstrel suicide. War disrupted routes. 100 Years' War battles stranded performers in hostile lands. A 1370 chronicle notes a troupe captured by bandits, their instruments burned. The church's scorn was relentless. A 1360 Avignon bull branded performers agents of Satan, banning them from sacraments. Secular laws were harsh. A 1380 London ordinance jailed vagrants, ensnaring jugglers. Women faced worse, accusations of prostitution or witchcraft. A 1390 Augsburg singer was burned, her songs deemed demonic. Social unrest, like the 1381 Peasants' Revolt, fed on performers' satires, making them scapegoats. Yet, their resilience shone. A 1400 York fair, held amid famine, saw minstrels sing of hope, their voices a balm. Conclusion: a song for the ages. Wandering performers and street entertainment were medieval Europe's vibrant pulse, their songs, flips, and jests a gift to a weary world. From Champagne's fairs to Seville's plazas, they wove joy, defiance and truth, their art bridging noble and peasant, sacred and profane. Yet, their brilliance was fragile, shadowed by poverty, persecution, and a world where laughter was a luxury. These performers, like torches in the dusk, burned bright but brief, their echoes in our circuses, theaters, and songs. Picture that fairground, torches fading, a minstrel's final note lingering in the air. Hold it close, a vision of a time when art was a spark snatched from hardship. This journey through medieval pleasures, peasant feasts, noble tournaments, sacred plays, lavish hunts, and street spectacles, reveals a world where joy, however fleeting, was a triumph. Let the lute strum and the crowd's cheer carry you into dreams, where the past sings its undying song. Games, sports, and communal contests. A sunlit meadow outside Bristol, 1360, thrums with the energy of a summer fair, its grasses trampled by eager feet. A crowd forms a ragged circle, their cheers rising as two burly villagers, stripped to their tunics, grapple in a wrestling match, muscles straining under sweat-slicked skin. Nearby, archers nock arrows, aiming at straw targets, while children kick a leather ball, their laughter mingling with the twang of bowstrings. In the distance, a knight tests his skill at quinton, his lance splintering against a swinging dummy to the crowd's roar. The air carries the scent of crushed clover and roasted apples, a festive hum binding peasant, craftsman, and lord in shared revelry. This is the world of medieval games and sports, where strength, skill, and chance offered escape from daily toil. In the Middle Ages, from the 11th to 15th centuries, communal contests, wrestling, archery, ball games, and mock battles were more than amusement. They were rites of community, tests of prowess, and mirrors of a society bound by hierarchy yet united in play. Let us stride across these fields and town squares to uncover how games and sports entertained medieval hearts. Wrestling and physical contests, strength on display. Wrestling was a cornerstone of medieval entertainment, a raw test of strength that drew crowds from villages to city fairs. Matches pitted local champions against rivals, often during harvest feasts or market days. A 13th-century chronicle from Normandy describes a 1270 wrestling bout where a miller, broad as an oak, threw a blacksmith to the ground, earning a cask of ale. Rules were simple: pin your opponent or force submission, though bites and gouges were often ignored in the heat of combat. Injuries were common. A 1320 York record notes a wrestler breaking his arm, yet he fought on, spurred by cheers. Wrestling transcended class, though styles varied. Peasants wrestled barefoot on grass, their matches chaotic and communal. Nobles, inspired by chivalric ideals, practiced formalized grappling, as seen in a 1350 German manual, Fechtbuch, which details throws for courtly contests. Prizes ranged from coins to livestock. A 1365 Devon fair awarded a ram to the victor, paraded through the village. Women rarely competed, but exceptions existed. A 1380 Flemish chronicle mentions a maiden's bout at a fair, their wrestling deemed unseemly by clergy but cheered by spectators. These contests built community but sparked rivalries. Village matches often pitted neighboring towns, fueling feuds. A 1335 Somerset brawl erupted when a wrestler taunted a rival hamlet, leaving 3 injured. The church frowned on such violence. A 1340 sermon by John Bromyard decried wrestling as pride's arena, yet fairs thrived on it, their circles of cheering onlookers a testament to its enduring appeal. Archery, skill and survival. Archery contests were both sport and necessity, honing skills vital for war and hunting. By the 14th century, English kings mandated archery practice, fearing reliance on crossbows. A 1363 statute by Edward III required men to shoot on Sundays, with butts, straw targets, erected in every village. Competitions at fairs tested precision, with archers aiming at marks 200 yards distant. A 1370 Winchester chronicle describes a contest where a yeoman split a willow wand, winning a silver arrow. Archery was democratic, open to commoners and nobles. Longbows, crafted from yew, were affordable, costing a shilling, unlike knightly armor. Prizes were modest but coveted: ale, cloaks, or coin. A 1355 Norfolk fair awarded a purse of 10 shillings, enough for a month's wages. Nobles hosted grander events. A 1349 tournament in London included an archery round, with knights competing alongside yeomen, a rare leveling of rank. Women participated marginally, often in ceremonial roles, though a 1390 French record notes a lady, Isabelle de Lorraine, hitting a target, her skill praised in verse. Contests carried risks. Stray arrows endangered crowds. A 1320 Oxford match killed a bystander, prompting bans on urban shooting. Rivalries flared. A 1360 Kent archer, accused of cheating, faced a mob's wrath. The church tolerated archery for its martial value but condemned gambling on outcomes, a frequent vice. A 1375 Canterbury ordinance fined bettors, yet wagers persisted, fueling the sport's fervor. Ball games, chaos and community. Ball games, precursors to modern football and hockey, were raucous communal sports, played with inflated pig bladders or wooden balls. Soul in France, mob football in England, and calcio in Italy involved entire villages, with hundreds chasing a ball across fields, streams, or streets. Rules were vague: get the ball to a goal, often a church or mill, by any means. A 1314 London chronicle describes a mob football match shattering shopfronts, prompting King Edward II's ban for great noise and harm. Villagers ignored such edicts, their games a release from toil. Matches were brutal. Players tackled, kicked, or wrestled, with broken bones common. A 1330 Cornish record notes a player trampled, his leg crushed. Goals could be miles apart, turning games into day-long marathons. Prizes were symbolic, ale, a feast, though pride was the true reward. A 1360 Breton soul match saw two villages compete for a banner, their rivalry sung by minstrels. Nobles occasionally joined, but ball games were a commoner's domain. A 1340 Florentine calcio game, played in Piazza Santa Croce, drew patricians as spectators, their bets swelling purses. Women were sidelined, though a 1380 Picard chronicle mentions girls playing a gentler ball game, tossing it in circles. The church decried the chaos. A 1365 Paris sermon branded soul, Satan's sport, yet clergy often watched, drawn by the spectacle. These games, wild and unifying, forged bonds across communities, their chaos a mirror of medieval life. Mock battles and quinton, play as war. Mock battles and quinton contests blended sport with martial training, popular among knights and commoners. Quinton involved charging a target, a wooden dummy or shield, on horseback, striking it with a lance. A 1320 Warwick fair saw squires tilt at a quinton, its arms swinging to unhorse the unwary. Success earned applause, failure, laughter. A 1350 French manual, L'Art de Chevalerie, praises quinton for honing aim, vital for tournaments. Commoners adapted quinton, using sticks on foot. A 1370 Norfolk record describes villagers striking a barrel, their lances, broom handles. Mock battles or hasteludes, staged skirmishes without bloodshed. A 1340 Cologne fair hosted a battle, where youths wielded padded clubs, mimicking knights. Prizes, caps, knives, drew competitors, though injuries persisted. A 1335 Bruges mock battle left a boy concussed, prompting a curfew. These contests bridged classes but reinforced hierarchy. Knights used them to flaunt prowess, while peasants parodied chivalry. The church tolerated martial games but banned excessive violence. A 1360 Avignon edict fined organizers for reckless play. Women rarely participated, though a 1390 Castilian chronicle notes a lady judging a quinton contest, her ribbon the prize. Mock battles, a playful echo of war, thrilled crowds with their blend of skill and spectacle. Children's games, innocence in play. Children's games, though less documented, were a vibrant part of medieval entertainment, teaching skills and forging bonds. Boys played King of the Hill, wrestling for a mound, or Hoodman's Blind, a blindfolded chase. Girls spun tops or tossed knucklebones, precursors to jacks. A 13th century manuscript, Decretum Gratiani, depicts children rolling hoops, their sticks clattering. Toys were simple, wooden horses, rag dolls, but cherished. A 1350 York will bequeaths a poppet to a daughter, a rare glimpse of sentiment. Games mirrored adult life. Boys mimicked archery or swordplay, using sticks, while girls played house, cradling straw dolls. A 1370 Parisian chronicle notes children staging a tournament with reed lances, their cheers echoing knights. Communal games, like tug-of-war, united ages. A 1360 Flemish fair saw children and adults pull a rope, collapsing in laughter. The church approved innocent play, but warned against gambling. A 1340 sermon chides boys betting marbles. These games, a child's rebellion against hardship, sowed seeds for adult revels. Regional variations, a mosaic of play. Games and sports varied across Europe, reflecting local cultures. In England, archery reigned, with Robin Hood contests mythologizing outlaws. A 1375 Lincoln Fair saw archers shoot at a Sherwood target, their winner crowned Hood. French soul was fiercely regional. A 1360 Brittany match used a coastal rock as a goal, players wading in surf. Italian calcio blended sport with pageantry. A 1410 Florence game, staged for a Sforza wedding, saw players in embroidered jerkins, their kicks a dance. German fairs favored wrestling, with ringen emphasizing technique. A 1380 Nuremberg chronicle details about where a brewer used a leg sweep, taught by a knight. Spanish juegos included bolio, a stone-throwing game akin to boules. A 1400 Toledo fair saw shepherds compete, their throws precise. Nordic regions, like Denmark, played natlike, a stickball game with Viking roots. A 1350 saga describes a match on ice, its brutality thrilling. These variations, each contest a local pride, wove a rich sporting tapestry, uniting Europe in play's universal tongue. Women's roles, shadows of participation. Women's roles in games were limited, their participation shaped by custom. They watched wrestling or archery, their cheers noted in chronicles. A 1360 Kent record praises a lady's fair shout for an archer. Some competed in women-only events. A 1390 Bruges fair hosted a dames race, with ribbons as prizes. Girls' games, like knucklebones, were socially accepted, but adult women faced scrutiny. A 1370 Parisian woman, caught wrestling at a fair, was fined for immodesty, her name struck from guild rolls. Patronage offered influence. A 1350 Florentine noblewoman, Caterina Sforza, sponsored an archery contest, her purse drawing champions. Women also shaped children's play, teaching games or crafting toys. A 1380 Rouen widow's will, a seamstress, notes sewing dolls for orphans. Rare exceptions defied norms. A 1365 Castilian chronicle describes a woman, Maria de Padilla, shooting archery publicly, her skill silencing critics. Women's roles, though marginal, added a quiet strength to the sporting world, their presence a subtle spark. A Villager's Tale, Hal and Joan. In Devon, 1370, Hal, a 20-year-old ploughman, laces his boots for a wrestling match at a Whitsun fair. Lean from field work, he's the village's hope against a rival Hamlet's champion, What, a hulking tanner. Hal's sister, Joan, 16, watches from a hay bale, her hands twisting a kerchief. She's practiced archery in secret, her quiver hidden in a barn, dreaming of the butts but barred by their mother's fears. Lasses don't shoot. As Hal grapples, pinning What with a desperate heave, Joan cheers, her voice lost in the roar. At the fair's archery round, Hal shoots wide, his bow unsteady from wrestling's toll. Joan, emboldened, sneaks a shot when the crowd thins, her arrow splitting the mark. A merchant, seeing her, offers to train her for a town contest, but Hal refuses, fearing scandal. That night, Joan kicks a ball with children, her laughter defiant. Their story, drawn from rural records, reflects the contest's allure, a chance for glory, shadowed by restraint. A 1370 Devon chronicle notes such siblings, their triumphs and dreams etched in dust and cheer. The shadow of play. Games and sports were joyous but perilous. Injuries abounded, archery misfires, wrestling fractures, ball game tramplings. A 1340 Lincoln record laments a boy's death in a mob football match, crushed in a scrum. Fairs where contests thrived, sparked unrest. A 1360 Norwich riot, fueled by a wrestling dispute, burned a market. Gambling, rife, ruined lives. A 1350 York craftsman bet his tools on an archer, losing all. The church decried the chaos. A 1370 sermon by Robert Manning branded sports vanity's snare, urging penance. Secular laws targeted disorder. A 1388 Cambridge Act jailed football players for public nuisance. Women's participation drew harsher censure. A 1390 Rouen woman, caught in a race, faced exile. Broader crises, like the 1348 plague or 1381 peasants' revolt, heightened scrutiny, casting games as distractions from prayer or labor. Yet, their resilience endured, a testament to play's unyielding pull. Conclusion: a triumph of spirit. Games, sports and communal contests were medieval Europe's vibrant arena, where strength, skill, and laughter forged community amid hardship. From Bristol's wrestling rings to Florence's calcio fields, they tested bodies, united souls, and echoed a spirit that transcends time. Yet, their joy was fragile, shadowed by injury, censure, and a society where play was both cherished and contested. This series, peasant feasts, noble tournaments, sacred dramas, lavish hunts, street spectacles, and now sporting triumphs, paints a world where entertainment was a hard-won spark, kindling hope in toil's shadow.